Welcome to this video on what is ego. We're going to start with a quote by Ram Dass. The ego, however, is not who you really are. The ego is your self-image. It is your social mask. It is the role you are playing. Your social mask thrives on approval. It wants control. And it is sustained by power because it lives in fear. Welcome to this video on what is one of our favorite topics, because understanding the ego is incredibly helpful to experiencing more consistent inner peace, healing, unconditional love, success, good health, joy, and connection to the divine in life. And that's because, believe it or not, the ego is one of the primary causes of all fear, stress, worry and anxiety, negative thoughts and emotions, relationship conflict, misunderstanding, illness and disease, and even suffering. Without ego, there's none of that. Now you might be saying, wait a minute, ego causes illness and disease? Well, yeah. According to leading scientists in the field of epigenetics, like Dr. Bruce Lipton, for example, 95% of illness and disease are stress-related. The negative thoughts and emotions of stress come from ego. And scientists are proving that the energies of negative thoughts and emotions stuck in different parts of our bodies can cause illness and disease. Thus, by generating our negative thoughts and emotions, ego is, at the very least, a participating factor in illness and disease. And by the way, ego also causes our expectations about the potential effect of certain treatments, whether they're going to be successful or not. And also our likelihood to inherit genetic illness, whether we're going to get what our parents had. In other words, ego is a direct influence on the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. In other words, the power of our beliefs, which scientists are proving is one of the most powerful influences over our health. And did you know that all of our beliefs come from ego? So if understanding the ego has the potential to help us transcend suffering, negative thoughts, negative emotions, relationship conflict, and disease, and to bring us more consistent inner peace, achievement of our goals, harmonious relationships, unconditional love, joy, and connection to the divine. Would you say this is a pretty good topic to focus on, devote some time to, understand as deeply as possible, and apply to your life? We think so. That's why we made this video. In this video, we're going to discuss how transcendence of ego allows you to access the gifts and divine intelligence that already exists within you. We're going to discuss how many people often confuse who they are with their ego, when actually their true self is separate and far greater and more wonderful than their ego self. We're going to discuss how becoming aware of your ego can help you connect to your soul and transcend issues and patterns that you may have been battling with for a long time. We're going to discuss how ego is not a bad thing. It is really a stepping stone, a phase, a necessary part of our evolution. We're going to discuss how ego causes us to react emotionally instead of consciously responding to life situations, and therefore it can significantly influence the quality of our life results and trajectory. We're going to discuss how ego can be transcended and how that opens new possibilities for more positive experiences like inner peace, unconditional love, wisdom, understanding, self-awareness, and more. We're going to discuss how ego can sort of run our lives on our behalf, decide for us, define our life, and limit us from achieving the goals that are most important to us. And if we don't become aware of ego, it can create our life outlook and our other perspectives about self, other, past, present, future. We're also going to discuss how ego is a cause of individual suffering, like stress, anxiety, all negative thoughts and emotions, relationship conflict, and even illness and disease. And how ego is a cause of global issues like violence, war, discrimination, corruption, pollution, scarcity, human rights abuses, and inequality. It is my hope that if you watch this with an open mind and an open heart, that you will be wonderfully surprised and deeply nourished by this information. As this video progresses, we will go deeper and build on topics as we go. If some information in the video doesn't resonate with you or triggers you, we ask that you keep an open mind and stay with it. In the beginning, we will communicate information that will help you integrate what we're going to teach. And that information is important because it sets the stage for the learning. There might be some things you like in the beginning and some things you love at the end. Maybe there will be some things you don't like so much in the middle. I hope not. That said, we are communicating to a wide audience here. There's a lot of people out there. And so that means wording these concepts in different ways to make it helpful and relevant to different people. All of whom are coming to this video with their own belief systems, judgments, expectations, and goals. There's no perfect order in which to communicate this information. And what's most helpful for you might come at the end, whereas the information that's most important and helpful to someone else might come at the beginning. This topic has so many layers and dimensions. If you stick with it, embrace it, and truly want to learn from this, you'll gain very enlightening understandings. If you just try to defeat it, judge me, and play devil's advocate, then ask yourself if you're really here to learn. That's not to say to just simply blindly accept everything I say as truth. Do please put your learning hat on and really try to benefit from this information, while of course always using your own intuition and wisdom and process of inquiry and introspection before you apply anything in your life. This might be one of the most facilitative, helpful, change-producing, and enlightening topics available for personal development and spiritual development, and self-awareness and consciousness. I can tell you from personal experience that understanding ego dynamics, becoming self-aware of ego, and working on deconstructing and transcending it gradually in my own life has led me to experience really wonderful and miraculous growth and evolution in my personal and professional and spiritual life. I've seen similar benefits in the lives of my clients as I help them become aware of and begin to transcend their ego. And there's a quote by someone named Richard Rose. The ego is the single biggest obstruction to the achievement of anything. And we'll be talking about that. We can talk about ego from many different vantage points. Scientific, psychological, spiritual, mental, emotional, metaphysical, energetic. In this video, I'll approach it from a variety of perspectives, hoping to empower most the person who truly wants to learn, grow, positively change, and evolve. In other words, those of you out there who want to apply an understanding of ego to yourself, your relationships, and your life in order to become more self-aware, more conscious, evolve, and affect positive change in your life. whether that be to heal from illness and disease, become more abundant, enhance your experience of meditation, grow spiritually, release stress, negative thoughts and negative emotions, enhance your relationships, transcend addiction, or any other sincere goal along those lines. My goal is to help those of you out there who really want the help. And I perceive this video to have that capacity. In this video, we're going to offer a very positive, diverse, and hopefully comprehensive understanding of ego that comes from many years of study, practice, meditation, work with a variety of spiritual teachers, and other preparation. That said, these understandings are nothing compared to what you can gain and acquire as you apply this information to your life. Meaning only so much of this stuff can be taught. These words, after all, are only meant to point to a greater truth. The rest, the truth, must be experienced personally. This information is meant to lay down the foundation or template, the neural pathways, that will allow you to then go out and have the rich learning experience of wisdom that is beyond words on your journey. So if the next time you have a relationship issue or a negative thought or a negative emotion and you ask, how can I apply what I learned in this video to this? And by doing that, you're revisiting, applying, integrating, and grounding the information into your system. Refiring, expanding, and diversifying those neural networks that we're laying down so that you can have deep, innate, intuitive understandings and wisdom specific to you and your journey, which is different than everyone else's. This creates true change, so that your old desires, fears, negative thoughts, emotions, patterns, and addictions are not just suppressed, repressed, or ignored. They're actually transcended. And this is the power of grounded, conscious understanding. So if you watch this video and never think about it again, don't expect it to change your life in the short term. That said, if you watch it with intention, this video can be highly transformative. And I want to start by providing you with a brief working model for understanding ego and what it is, so that you have a good reference point as we talk about it, so you can get in touch with it as we go. I'll add more to this model as the video progresses. It'll become more and more sophisticated throughout this video and other videos. You may have heard the word ego tossed around. For example, that person is so egotistical, or they have such a big ego. Maybe someone said this about you. The good news is that we're all in this together. Almost everyone has ego, and almost everyone's is pretty big and pretty dense. Contrary to what some might claim, in my experience, there are really just a few people in the world who have mostly or completely transcended ego. And I'm talking 0.0000001% or less. And these people are some of the most attained spiritual teachers, and they're often not the ones you hear of in mainstream media. They're often far lesser known and subtle and discreet in their helpful ways, in the ways they're helping the planet and our species. This is, of course, with the exception of sages like Jesus Christ, the Buddha, Muhammad, who we perceive did transcend ego. With ego, we might suggest that these wonderful beings may not have had access to the gifts, the wisdom, and divine connection that they did have. Ego could have gotten in the way of that, had they had ego. It is the transcendence of ego that allows us to access the gifts and divine intelligence that already exists within all of us and each of us. Which means you can access the divine intelligence within you through the gradual and incremental transcendence of your ego. Transcending ego brings us closer to our true divine nature, and with every new level of self-awareness that you attain, and every part of ego that you deconstruct and transcend, you will experience more joy, more understanding, more inner peace, more consciousness, and more evolution. This is because transcendence of ego is a doorway to the soul, where God exists within each of us. And please, when I say God, let's not get lost in a game of words. Just replace that with whatever God is to you, whether that be consciousness, divine source, the quantum, unity, oneness, love, the universe, energy, spirit, potential, absolute truth, or something else. Same with the word soul. Now we're going to get into some details about ego. Please give this your focus and attention, as the fruits are worth it. And we go deeper and deeper and more profound as we go. Give this the benefit of the doubt, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Transcendence of ego is a doorway to consciousness, inner peace, joy, unconditional love, our soul, and God. Because ego creates separation from these things. And separation is the source of all conflict. We can't have inner peace and joy and love if there's separation and conflict. Just can't. You can picture ego as an invisible bubble that surrounds us all around and creates separation between us and reality. In a sense, creating our own virtual reality or silo or box or shell that we live in. Now, the original purpose of ego, the reason why we subconsciously build up this bubble, is survival. The paradox or irony is that this focus on our individual survival actually prevents us from evolving more as individuals. The ego and its survival mindset, or the ego survival mechanism, is a glass ceiling, a limitation on our full potential as human beings that's invisible. And this is because if we're focused on survival, we can't be experiencing the high vibration experiences of consciousness, inner peace, joy, unconditional love, our soul, or God. Because a survival focus is based on stress, anxiety, and fear. And those emotions are low vibration. They're unconscious. Now, transcending the ego doesn't mean you're going to die or be unable to make money or to take care of yourself. In fact, you'll be far more aware and conscious and capable of surviving and navigating your life and achieving your goals with less ego. And you'll be able to do it with greater alignment, purity, and effect, because your efforts will be fueled by conscious, wise, discerning, and loving intention and energy, as opposed to the stress, anxiety, and fear energy that fuels the ego. So, the ego is like this bubble, and we live inside this bubble and experience our own personal reality from within this bubble. This is why, if you ask people who watched a movie how it was, each person will use different words to communicate different things about the movie. Some might say they loved the movie, that they loved the acting. Some might say they hated the acting. Some would say it was really funny. Others would say it was really boring. Other people might say the popcorn was really great. Other people might say the popcorn was really salty. Or that the seats were uncomfortable. Everyone is having a different experience of reality from within their ego bubble. And who's right? With 7.5 billion people in the world, whose personal reality is right? Whose ego is right? Whose critique of the movie is absolutely correct? Well, it's not about who is right and who is wrong. It's about whose personal reality are we talking about. And if we wanted to ask what is optimal for the world, we might ask questions like, what's most supportive of everyone's individual learning process? What's most supportive of everyone's free will while supporting the highest and best good of all? Anyways, the reason why everyone lives their own personal reality is that the ego bubble is made up of our own conditioned beliefs, ways of operating, ways of seeing other people and the world, ways of thinking, ways of relating to others, our habits, predispositions, biases, fears, judgments, expectations, and rules that we believe in. And most of these come from our unique set of past experiences, which we've interpreted and stored in the form of knowledge, beliefs, patterns, and programs. We pick up these programs from parents, society, and culture. They're not really just ours. We pick them up from people around us. And as we experience life, we interpret our experiences from inside this bubble, meaning that our prior interpretations of experience affect our future interpretations of experience. And as experiences or information flow through the outer lens of this bubble, they get distorted by the layers of the bubble, leading to a unique interpretation of the experience. And then we make the unique decisions based on our unique interpretations or our unique set of information, which is the result of our interpretation of experiences. That's why people have differences. They're all operating with a different set of information that they refer to as reality. Well, is this really reality, or is it just their personal reality and their own personal interpretations? And is there a reality that is the same for all of us? And these are great questions. Some say that enlightenment allows us to finally see what is. Enlightenment is a process of deconstructing the ego. Did you know that until the age of 7, our brains are in brainwave states of alpha and theta, which are equal to hypnosis? Ages 0 to 7 are literally called our programming years. That means we're just absorbing all the information around us, creating programs, inheriting the fears, beliefs, judgments, expectations, assumptions, habits, and addictions of those in our environment, the people that we live with, the teachers, the authority figures, parents, grandparents. Meaning the subconscious mind of a 5-year-old child doesn't ask, is this behavior that I'm seeing in my parents, is that going to suit me optimally in my life? No, the child just absorbs it. So even though the child hates seeing dad yell at mom, in a few years the child is yelling at mom. Or 20 years later, they grow up and they also yell at their wife, for example. Our mind and our ego get filled with all of this information in these programs. And you can see it when you see a child watch a television program and they come out acting like Dora the Explorer or Cinderella. Not just living in the house as Dora the Explorer or Cinderella, but going out in the grocery store too and acting like Cinderella or Dora the Explorer. And they even wear the costume when they go to the mall, and it becomes a part of their personality, their self-image, and even their identity. Or when you see a young child passionately say something that you know came from their parents, like, "You're not the boss of me," or "Money doesn't grow on trees." When it happens, it's cute. That said, what's really happening is that the child is inheriting programs which are becoming a part of their identity and their ego. And these programs are getting passed on generation after generation. to the point where we're unconsciously continuing programs from ancestors that lived a long time ago in a different world who are less intelligent, less technologically capable. Scientists actually have proven that we have these like mimicry neurons that copy behavior. And so when we get programmed to believe that we should be like a prince or a princess, because that's what we watch and that's how we dress for Halloween, and that one day a perfect prince or princess is going to come swoop us away like in the movies and accept us for who we are completely. Does that really prepare us optimally for real life where relationships are emotional and require us to face our fears and learn and have faith and patience and tolerance and commitment? What happens when we've been programmed to expect and believe that Prince Charming is going to solve everything for us? Or that Princess Bride will be perfect and satisfy our every need and desire? Now, some of you might say, well, aren't our differences what make us so special? Why would I deconstruct my ego? What makes me unique? And that's a great question, to which I would first say that your ego does not really make you unique. Really, it makes you more of the same. Because most of it is just a bunch of programs picked up from family and society unconsciously without asking, hey, is this good for me? The uniqueness provided by the ego is an illusion. You are so much more than just a set of beliefs and preferences. Whether you like white chocolate or dark chocolate is trivial, superficial. Whether you wear hipster clothes or conservative clothes or business clothes or punk clothes, it doesn't matter. That's not who you are. It's just an avatar. It doesn't even skim the surface of the depth of who you are, which can be found within the subtle interactions you have with others, deep within your heart, and in the trajectory of your soul across lifetimes, if you perceive that. Now that said, your soul does make you unique. It has its own spark, its own essence, and signature. And by deconstructing your ego, you can tap into your true essence, your purpose, and what really makes you unique. Your ego just separates you from your true essence. And the way your ego makes you different is actually quite superficial and programmed and predictable. Your ego doesn't really make you unique. It makes you more of the same while keeping you stuck, reacting to people and things in the same ways and on an emotional roller coaster from which it's hard to really accomplish anything great. And it's definitely challenging from ego to have inner peace and joy in life consistently. In the book, The Teachings of the Masters from the Far East, the first volume, one of the masters says, it is not the being of the form that we wish to change, but the form that the being has assumed. Your ego is just a temporary form that your soul has assumed in its best effort to fit in with the way things are done in your family, in your culture, and in your generation, in order to survive, compete, make money, have power, and have status. And this process of fitting in with society, with the tribe or the herd, is a process of learning to copy the people around us and their behaviors, their reactions, their patterns. This instinctive process of copying is done for survival in the tribe or the herd, to maintain a safe social status. Basically, a genetically ingrained pattern of, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And this is what we're doing when we're growing up, learning to copy others around us. This is also related to the Stockholm Syndrome, for those of you who are familiar. Now, I know a lot of people out there might hear this and say, that doesn't apply to me. I don't care what other people think. I don't copy other people. I think for myself completely. Well, to that, I would suggest that belief about yourself, or that sense of identity, meaning being someone who doesn't care what other people think, being someone who doesn't copy others, being someone who isn't affected by others, might feel good to believe in that or to assume that identity. That said, it is in itself a safety strategy and an anti-abandonment strategy and a competitive strategy that doesn't really have any basis in reality. Maybe it's how you want to be perceived in a world or culture or family where having that quality is seen as good or necessary. And you can believe whatever you want about yourself, and you can try to project that out into the world and get other people to believe it too. That said, that doesn't mean it's true. That doesn't mean it matches with a close introspection of your behavior. No matter who you are, unless you're an incredibly attained spiritual master, it is very likely that you have those mimic neurons and patterns, and that those parts of you, that you have parts of you that fit in, copy, and emulate. And to get a sense of this subconscious instinct to fit in, imagine being born as a rather helpless little baby into a world with 7.5 billion people. And if your consciousness looks down at your physical body and assumes, hey, that's who I am. I'm this little baby in this world of 7.5 billion other adults and all these machines, these big scary cars. And it assumes that it is the body, and that if the body dies, then it dies. And it is afraid of death because death is the great unknown and it can't be controlled. Then what would this mind or consciousness, what would it want to do? Might it want to fit in and do as the Romans do, think and behave like they do? It's only normal. So becoming aware of the ego is a humble process because we'll find things out about ourselves that we didn't know. And patterns that in the past maybe we've judged and don't want to identify with, because it doesn't fit our ego. And that's okay, because if you don't become aware of it, if you suppress it, it doesn't mean it's not there. And if it is there and it's influencing your life without you knowing it, once you become aware of it, you can work on it. You can work with it. You can work on releasing it, transcending it. And then that will be one more ounce of consciousness that you can have, that you can use for joy, inner peace, love, spirit, and success in life. So you're born into this world, and like everyone else, you're in a state of hypnosis until 7. And so you pick up all these programs from the world. Now, let me ask you this. What if the species you're born into is still learning, still evolving? Well, then naturally, like a relay race where you pick up the baton from the partner and move and run forward, you join the party wherever the species is at in its level of understanding, and the level of understanding and sophistication and consciousness of the species becomes your level of understanding, sophistication, and consciousness as an individual as you grow up within that species, within that time period. And today our species is still in the process of transcending the stress and survival mindset. We're in that time period. So it's no surprise that stress is being labeled the greatest health epidemic of the 21st century, and 95% of people that go to the hospital are there because of some stress-induced illness. Our species today still operates from a lot of limiting beliefs, scarcity, control strategies, addictions, and fears. And it's kind of invisible because it's normal. And what's normal becomes invisible. And you can see this when you turn on the news or watch commercials and that try to scare you into buying their products. You can see this when you look at the cost of healthcare, or the amount of corruption in politics, or the rates of addiction and divorce in society. The patterns that underlie these macro issues are what we absorb via our ego in our childhood. And so the ego becomes an ego that wants to compete, be better than others, never be hurt or seen as less than others. It doesn't want to be vulnerable or humble or self-aware, because that's not what the successful people in society are doing. TV and commercials are telling us to look better than others, smell better than others, have nicer cars. Would you say the average CEO or millionaire is humble, vulnerable, self-aware, and truly concerned about the highest and best good of all? And so our egos, which are programmed in our childhood, operate from stress and survival. Interestingly enough, at its core, ego is a survival mechanism. The ego doesn't understand that we are an eternal soul. The ego makes decisions based on its limited perspective. It's misunderstanding that all it is a body that can die. And so it doesn't take into consideration the question of what is best for my soul in this moment. It usually can only ask what is safest in this very moment. What will give me a greater sense of control now? What will give me power in this situation? And it remains occupied trying to gather these ungatherable things. I mean, not even billionaires have an absolute sense of safety or control or power. And as you can see by the billionaire last week that recently died in a helicopter crash. And God bless him and all the others that passed away in that. As the ego attempts to apply its safety, control, power, survival, and anti-abandonment strategies, it inevitably fails. Just like the celebrity who has fame and fortune and still is massively depressed and addicted to drugs, not even all the fame and fortune brought them that peace and fulfillment. The ego and its desires are insatiable, and it tries to take the round world and stick it into a square hole. And so with ego there, one cannot have lasting inner peace, self-acceptance, or unconditional love. The ego uses the mind to create rules, beliefs, and other programs to defend the body that it thinks it is. Then it tries to apply those rules, beliefs, and programs in situations to make decisions that will hopefully keep it safe. The issue with this is that no rule, belief, or program is as effective as consciousness in the present moment. Especially in an ever-changing world where every situation is unique. And that's just the case with the present moment. For example, the ego says, I'm going to be the type of person who always gives more than they receive. I'm always going to tip people. And I will always say thank you. How wonderful. If I do that, then I will be a good person. I will be accepted by my family and by others. Now, what happens when that person tips and thanks the delivery driver, and the delivery driver gets upset because they feel like they didn't get a big enough tip? And so then they call the person a bad person, a greedy person. Well, now the person who had it all figured out, how to be a good person, feels hurt, feels misunderstood, feels angry. So what happens in a relationship when they try and believe that they're giving more than they're receiving? Because they employ that as a strategy to be good, to be unabandonable. And then all of a sudden their partner doesn't really feel that way. What happens when their partner feels like they're giving more than they're receiving? Now, working through that conflict or misunderstanding or difference of opinion or perspective is going to be challenging, because each person has tied the strategy of giving more than they receive to their identity of being a good person. So having that discussion will require both of them to go up against that very primal, instinctive, and emotionally strong and intense need or survival strategy to be a good person, perceived need, and in order to stay safe and not be abandoned. And this is why small discussions in relationships can turn into such heated arguments. When it comes to ego, people often have no clue how emotionally deep some of these small issues are. And they assume that the relationship is the problem when these big problems occur, when in fact the relationship is actually just helping them to surface and become aware of deeply embedded ego strategies which aren't serving them. And so truly the relationship is helping them. A poet, Khalil Gibran, said, "The pain you feel is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. The negative thoughts, emotions, judgment, fear, anger, etc. that we feel are just us getting in touch with aspects of our ego that we can transcend in order to attain deeper understanding." That said, because ego is a very basic survival and self-defense mechanism, the emotions in the process can be intense. Hence you see crimes of passion and domestic abuse and hatred towards immigrants and racism. An anonymous quote says, "The ego judges and punishes. Love forgives and heals." Ego being unconscious, primal, safety and survival strategy operates based on judgment and punishment, not on love or understanding or acceptance or forgiveness. It's old paradigm. From a world where we didn't have the tools and technology we have today. From a world where we used fight or flight and stress and survival mode to survive. And this is why we would also say that the unresolved differences, conflict, and misunderstandings we're experiencing as a world today stem from ego. For example, the violence and greed that we see, the amount of money spent on war, the way we treat immigrants, the way nations compete instead of working together, the way we are polluting our environment, and so much more. Whether you look at it from a worldview, taking into consideration global issues, or a personal view, taking into consideration our own personal quality of life, every little bit of ego that we transcend allows us to extend the bridge a little farther, a bridge to reach those we love, to bridge the gap of separation and conflict, to achieve more teamwork and shared understandings and goals, to be healthier, more joyful, and more at peace, and to achieve more of our goals, and to live more connected to the divine in our lives. You may have heard the saying, "Wherever you go, there you are." Well, truly, we carry our ego or our programmed habits, patterns, thoughts, emotions, beliefs, biases, predispositions, misunderstandings, fears, beliefs, expectations, and judgments with us like a big bag of rocks. You can also look at it as like this cloud that surrounds us, or a bubble. Have you ever noticed how you can carry your worries with you all day long? Like the cloud in the cartoons that's just raining on one person. You can carry them in line at the grocery store, in traffic, at work, at home, before bed, even in your dreams. And for years on end, until eventually the worries become a part of your personality and identity and self-image and social image. To the point where you know that if you're talking to Grandpa, he's going to be worried about the weather, or his freedom, or his Yankees, or the mail, or the immigrants. It doesn't matter if you go to watch the best movie ever. If your ego is depressed, upset, angry, or afraid about something else in your life, it's going to be hard for you to enjoy that movie. You're going to be experiencing life through that lens, the lens of ego. In many ways, the ego is like a vehicle or a car that we ride in for a duration of our evolutionary process until we transcend it. like a drive-through the zoo, like a drive-through zoo. We experience everything through this car, looking at all the animals. And it feels safe until there's a song or a voice on the radio that we don't like. And we can't change it. There's a quote by a fellow named Blaise Pascal. "The problem with mankind is man's inability to sit in a room alone." Why would a person have a hard time sitting in a room alone? This quote highlights the ego because when we're in that room alone, the ego splashes all of its thoughts and emotions onto the pure white walls of that room. The room is a blank canvas. And it's those thoughts and emotions generated by ego that we don't like, not the empty room. In the empty room, that ego generates thoughts like, what am I going to do later? What didn't I get done yesterday? What am I not doing right in my life? I don't have time for this. I don't have enough money. What should I be worried about now? I need that paycheck. I'm bored. This sucks. I hate this room. And those thoughts come with corresponding emotions of boredom, dissatisfaction, lack, fear, frustration, worry, anxiety. And those painful thoughts and emotions then bring a desire for distraction from the pain. And so we reach for our phone and play a game or go on social media or try to turn on the TV or seek out sex or drugs or alcohol or try to just get work done or escape in some way. Now, of course, none of these things are bad. It's fine to use your phone, watch TV, have sex, and get work done. That's great. And it's even better if you do it from a place of deep purpose, alignment, inner peace, and intentionality. When we do it from this pure place, without ego, we can often achieve way more, and in a way more enjoyable fashion, with far less effort, and incurring far less trouble, issues, negative karma. Without ego, we would have complete inner peace and quiet and stillness and silence in that empty room. Can you feel or imagine what it would feel like to have complete inner peace and silence and stillness? In that inner peace, quiet, stillness, and silence, we can find our soul purpose and the divine. The stillness and silence is a doorway to something far greater than the noise, the roller coaster, the ups and downs that we experience within our ego bubble. And learning to prioritize, to choose, prefer the silence over the noise is part of the process of evolution. It's the next level, the graduation from materialism of ego. It's far greater than any sexual fantasy, vacation, or external experience. It's deep connection to your soul, to the deepest parts of your being. Someone named Robert Schuller said, "Big egos have little ears." And that's because when the ego is big, it means we're so full of programmed habits, patterns, biases, predispositions, misunderstandings, fears, beliefs, expectations, and judgments, that it's challenging to really listen. And when we try to listen, the ego bubble is so thick that what we hear isn't what's being said. We might even be so lost in thought and our own worries that we can't focus. Having our cup full of these programs or a big ego can also cause a lot of mental and emotional turbulence, meaning lots of negative thoughts, obsessive thinking, depression, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, fatigue, etc. And that's because it takes a lot of bandwidth to live life with a bunch of subconscious programmed habits, patterns, biases, predispositions, misunderstandings, fears, beliefs, expectations, and judgments, which are often very inconsistent with each other. And for example, if we have one program that says it's really important to do something you love for a living, and another program that says it's really important to have a safe and stable job that pays the bills, How can you feel at peace if you're working the safe and stable job? Or if you're starting a business to pursue your passion? There will always be a program, a belief, an expectation that is pulling you in another direction. Bringing doubt, dissatisfaction, negative thoughts, and negative emotions to your state of being. This fragmentation of ego, which is when we have different parts and personalities in our ego with different fears, beliefs, and agendas, creates inner conflict, it creates negative thoughts, emotions, and disease, really. And being pulled, or at least dis-ease, which we perceive, as scientists are realizing, turns into disease. Being pulled in many different directions prevents us from focusing, being effective, achieving things. In fact, in my experience, not medically speaking, just personally speaking, that ADD and OCD and dementia and loss of memory come from having lots of strong programs and fragmentation in our ego. As a result of not processing and transcending ego out over time throughout our lives, which is really the long-term goal. The ego is not something to add on to. It's something to deconstruct, to transcend. It has its usefulness until it doesn't. They're like training wheels on a bike. Once you take the training wheels off, you can do a whole lot more. There's not much point in, once you learn to ride a bike, to keep them on. And there's great freedom in deconstructing the ego. And there's a lot of advice out there that actually adds more programs, a lot of self-help and hacks that add more programs, more beliefs, more fears, more judgments and expectations, with the hopes of hacking one's way towards success, as opposed to consciously evolving one's way forward in a way that is beneficial in the short term, medium term, and long term. I don't recommend hacking as the most conscious, wise way to go. If you're adding programs, beliefs, etc., then you're not becoming more conscious. You're becoming more programmed. You're programming yourself. And therefore, you're becoming more unconscious. Now, that's not to say that all the hacks you've ever learned or advice that's been labeled hacks is bad. No, I'm sure there's many great ones. Now, that said, because consciousness is seeing the what is in every moment, which is totally unique and new, because every moment, everything changes. Like Krishnamurti would say, the present moment is so fresh and new. It's so fresh and new. And trying to use a belief to comprehend life is like trying to catch a waterfall in a cup. No single strategy or belief can replace your application of your profound consciousness and wisdom to the present moment. When we add programs to our cup, we actually become less able to listen and learn. Ego is literally a learning disability. How many times have you tried to share something helpful with someone you love, only to have them disregard it, judge it, diminish it, just make a joke and let it go? There's a story of a disciple who went to the most reputable spiritual master in the world and said, I've worked with this person and this spiritual master and this one, and I've learned everything there is to learn from them. And now I'm here to see if there's anything left for me to learn from you. The spiritual master began to pour tea in the disciple's cup until it overflowed and just kept pouring and pouring and pouring until the disciple says, "What are you doing? You're spilling everywhere." To which the spiritual master replies, "You are like this cup. You are so full that nothing more will fit." And so the process of transcending ego, the process of evolution and enlightenment, is not a process of becoming filled with knowledge. It is a process of using knowledge as a reference point to take that next step, to reach for the next rung on the ladder of consciousness, to deconstruct another aspect of ego, and then let the knowledge that allowed us to do that go. Let it go. so that it too doesn't become another aspect of ego. The ego has this effect of creating thoughts and emotions and desires and expectations about relationship and everything in life that we often assume to be real, true, bright, and who we are, without questioning the usefulness of those expectations and desires. We think that's just our desires. It's just that must be who we are because we want that. We feel these desires, addictions, and beliefs, and we feel incapable of changing them because they feel so ingrained with who we've become or who we are that it feels like it's more in control of us than we are of it. And we're not taught that just because you want something or feel something means that's who you are, because that's not what that means. We consciously and subconsciously project these beliefs, assumptions, expectations, and attitudes onto ourselves, onto life, onto people, relationships, the past, the present, and the future, in every moment. And thereby, through that projection, creating this bubble, remember the bubble, of information or programs which are projected around us. We live in that bubble as the information in the form of life experiences flows through the outer layer and inner layers of this ego bubble. It gets distorted as it bounces around all these layers and preconceived assumptions, beliefs, and attitudes. The information we finally receive then has already been distorted by these programs. Thus, we're not experiencing reality, but just our own version of reality, made of our misinterpretations, which we record as absolute truth, or at least truer than other people's. As you can see, this bubble causes us to live in a personal reality that's different than everyone else's. Hence, conflict. What do you get with 7.5 billion people walking around with different versions of reality? Some misunderstanding, some conflict, some warfare. We each live in this bubble, our own bubble, and this bubble influences all information coming in, our interpretations, and all information going out, our decisions. In other words, as you experience life, you receive information, words, sounds, images, light, faces. As this energy and information flows to you, it flows through the bubble of your ego, getting filtered and distorted by it. Some things get left out, some things come in but get changed. So as you interpret these life experiences, you interpret them through the lens of your ego bubble, your personality, your personal reality, or your beliefs. And for example, that information gets distorted as it passes through your ego or belief system even before it reaches your eyes. Even before it reaches your eyes and ears. Or in other words, your conscious mind. And what you receive is the distorted result, which you assume to be reality. That said, it's not really reality, because the information has been biased by mostly subconscious interpretive processes of ego, again, before it even reaches you. You don't know it's been distorted because the ego is invisible. It's invisible because the habits, patterns, assumptions, beliefs, fears, judgments, biases, predispositions, misunderstandings, and expectations that make up the ego and distort reality are mostly subconscious to us. So for example, let's say that we're afraid of snakes because we watched those movies with the giant killer snakes. We go out in the garden and we step on a rope, and oh my gosh, we immediately think it's a snake. So we jump in terror and twist our ankle. Another example, let's say that we're afraid of getting a heart attack because our parents and grandparents got heart attacks. As soon as we have a common pain in our heart, what is the first thing we think? Oh my gosh, I'm having a heart attack. No, it was just gas. One more example. Let's say our ex cheated on us. Now our new partner comes home late from work. What's the first thing that we think when they walk through that door at 9 p.m.? Oh my gosh, they were cheating on us. You were cheating on me, I knew it. Causing conflict, distrust, turmoil. Do you see how the ego distorts reality? Do you see how we often interpret life through the lens of our fears, beliefs, expectations, and judgments? Now, if you do, congratulations. This is excellent. Because you have now a working model for understanding ego and bias. For applying this model will bring you great evolution, growth, attainment of understanding and healing and freedom. So let's keep going. As we said, this ego bubble is mostly invisible to us because it's mostly subconscious. As you become conscious of the ego, or self-aware of your habits, patterns, predispositions, biases, fears, beliefs, judgments, assumptions, and expectations, am I saying this enough? You can begin to change them. And better yet, release them, transcend them. If you've seen Freud's iceberg metaphor, comparing the size of the conscious mind to the subconscious mind, if you haven't, you can Google it, it's there. Look at the images. Then you know that most of our ego is actually subconscious. There's only a little tip of the iceberg that's conscious. The rest, this huge bulk, is subconscious beneath the water. Meaning we're not aware of most of it. In other words, of course, you could describe some elements of your personality that said there's so much more about your personality and your subconscious patterns, the reasons why you get angry, your habits, your tendencies, your conditioned beliefs, and more that influence your interpretations and your decisions that you're not even aware of. Do you really think that if you knew why you got angry, that you would still get angry? If you really understood? Well, having these obscurations is just a side effect of being human and being at this stage of the school of the soul, the school of earth. A lot of people might fear the idea that there are things that they don't know about themselves, and we would suggest that that fear is in itself ego and represents a perfect opportunity to demonstrate how the ego, quote unquote, is the single biggest obstruction to the achievement of anything, according to Richard Rose. Understanding ego dynamics, becoming self-aware of it, deconstructing it, can offer tremendous benefits and more. With each piece of ego that you deconstruct, you get closer to your true self, your soul, the divine within you and around you. With each piece of ego that you become aware of and transcend, you remove a layer of separation between you and your goals, you and others, you and the world, you and the universe, you and the divine, you and God. You experience more oneness, unity, wholeness. With each piece of ego that you release, you let go of bias and misinterpretation and misunderstanding. Ego is like a filter on reality or a distorting lens that causes you to misperceive and misinterpret reality. And as you release these distorting filters, you begin to see reality, to see what is more and more. And it's beautiful. It's not the bleak, pessimistic picture the ego creates. Like the anonymous quote, ego, quote unquote, is just like dust in the eyes. Without clearing the dust, we can't see anything clearly. So clear the ego and see the world. Have you ever been in a funk? Maybe you just had a day or a few weeks or even a month or more where you felt depressed or tired or overwhelmed. And then maybe later you were better, back to relatively normal, whatever that is. These ups and downs are the swings of ego. When we're depressed, or in any mood for that matter, it is a result or a function of our ego. So if you want to experience more consistent presence, inner peace, joy, unconditional love, understanding ego dynamics is really important. because it will empower you to have the experiences of life that you want in your body. When we emotionally react to people and things in our life, we're reacting from ego. It is the ego that reacts, because the ego is this nearly constantly running and not very effective self-defense mechanism. And if you've ever gotten frustrated with someone and said or did something that you didn't really want to say or do, now I know you haven't, but if you can imagine someone who has, in that moment it was your ego reacting. The ego is reactive. If you want to stop emotionally reacting to life situations and issues and start consciously, wisely responding, then becoming aware of and gradually deconstructing ego is necessary. In fact, you can use the times when you react in life to start becoming self-aware of ego and beginning to transcend it. Every reaction is just a program that makes up the ego, including every emotional reaction, especially. And if you can accept that every negative emotion comes from ego, then you have a very simple way to start becoming self-aware of ego without judgment. All you have to do is begin to observe any time where you start to feel negative emotion without judging yourself. Whenever a negative emotion comes up, you're being given an opportunity to break the shell that encloses your understanding. An opportunity to step out of that program, of that sadness or anger or that story you tell yourself about why you're not good enough or don't deserve or why something is a big problem, supposedly. An opportunity to replace that with consciousness and reclaim that energy spent on sadness, anger, frustration, stress, or anxiety, and reapply it to awareness, love, understanding, and conscious, wise action. Just notice when you start to feel a negative emotion. Recognize that it is coming from ego, not truth or consciousness or who you really are. And inquire within to find what aspect of ego is getting triggered in that moment. What's the belief that isn't matching up with reality? What's the fear that's being triggered and projected? What's the control strategy that is not working? What's the expectation that isn't being met? Write it down, introspect, reflect, inquire, and identify it, and instead of reacting to it, or blaming someone, or saying or doing something that isn't in alignment with your deepest and intentions, gain from it, gain from the experience. Choose to consciously respond instead of emotionally reacting in the same ways you've been reacting in the past. And by doing so, by gaining this awareness and making this new choice, you're creating a positive change and ripple effect across your entire life, including your past, present, and future. And when you move a grain of sand on the beach, you change the history of the world. And with every grain of self-awareness that you attain, with every conscious choice you make, you change your history and you grow closer to that undefinable force of love and intelligence within you. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications by pressing the bell icon if you want to know when we release a new video. And stay tuned because we'll be offering a lot more information, techniques, tools, and meditations to help you transcend all ego and consciously change your destiny. There's another video that we'll be releasing on this topic, on what is ego, and it's going to be quite different. I believe it will be called What is Ego Part 2. You may want to give that a watch. If you're interested in a coaching session, contact us. It has been our experience that one-on-one coaching really makes a difference. We hope that this video was helpful, that you enjoyed it, and that you have a really great day.